What's up, y'all? Back at it again. This time we're going to be going over patterns and the mirror tool. We're going to draw this kind of tiley pattern here first, and then we're going to go on and attempt to draw this gear. This will be using a rectangular pattern, and this, lots of circular patterns. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Here we go. Starting off, I got a 2D sketch. I'm drawing in the XZ plane. Taking a look at our shapes here. We've got an octagon, and the octagon has a couple shapes around it. This pattern repeated, though, is only really going to be an octagon and two rectangles, because when we copy that up, the two rectangles from above will form the next connection, and it'll be connecting to the rectangle that's already there. So I'm going to grab the polygon tool, changing that to 8 for the 8 sides of a octagon. Okay. Drawing this, I'm going to deliberately draw it crooked, come through and draw a little construction line that we can use to create parallel sections. So we're going to grab the parallel constraint and make sure that this octagon is parallel with that line. Perfecto. Nice job. Okay, super. We also need to set a dimension for our octagon. I'm going to be choosing from here to here, and I'm going to go ahead and make that 1 inch. Zoom to fit. If that's 1 inch, all the way across my octagon is 2. I can then now drag up to this point, and we need to, I'm going to move this over a smidge. We need to figure out how tall that square is going to be. I'm going to use the line tool. Well, first, let's figure out the square is going to be whatever this dimension is here. So you could use the rectangle tool if you'd like, 2-point rectangle, but first we need to identify the distance between here and here. We could measure, or we could just add a dimensional constraint. Looks like it's 0.828. Okay, so coming in, rectangle, come across, 0.828, tab over to the other option, 0.828, enter. Great. Do the same thing down here. Coming out, 0.828, tab over, 0.828. Boom, great, nice job. Wonderful. So now we can zoom to fit. We've got our pattern here, and we are not going to finish the sketch quite yet. What we need to do first is kind of figure out where we want to go with this pattern. So I say we're going to go up and to the right. We're going to be using the rectangular pattern tool. How this works is the geometry that you select, so you click in this box, select the geometry you like, can be copied in a direction. Now you can choose a line, you can use construction lines, or use the lines already on your figure to select the direction. I want to copy up and down this direction, so I can select any of these vertical lines is acceptable. Okay, and then you'll notice I wanted to copy up, it's going down. You can press this little flip option to change up the direction that you'd like to go. How many copies do I want? Well, let's see what's in the picture. Looks like maybe 2 or 3 this way and 4 that way. So we'll do 3 up. We did like 3 up, and I want to go, let's just do the 3 up for now. We'll focus on that. Notice it only moved it up 1 inch. So it moved this line up to here. It needs to go up another 1 inch plus an additional 8.28. So the final measurement is going to be 2.828 to get it perfectly lined up and create our tile pattern here. Oh man, that's pretty. Okay. We also want to copy it rectangularly to the right. So we choose a second direction. It can be any of these horizontal lines for the direction, and you get to decide which direction you want to send it. I want to send it this way, and again this time I'm going to do 4. They don't have to be the same number, and I want the distance to, again, to be 2.828. Got it all lined up. We press OK, and notice that it selected all of those individual lines. I was a goofball. That shouldn't have been there. So deselect that when you're doing it on yours if you're practicing, or if there's any feature you select is going to be copied along. So just make sure you know what you're selecting before you do that. I'm not going to do it again. We're going to move on to it should be easy enough to fix. We're going to move on to the gear now, drawing that gear. So new sketch, great. Moving on here. Moving on, new sketch. Standard inches IPT, create. All right, now let's come up with a strategy here. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to keep, I don't really know the actual height here, this inner supporting piece, I'm going to keep it roughly the same height as the outside for simplicity's sake. So I'm going to draw a disc that's like an inch thick, and then I'm going to cut away a portion so we can create that and make it missing. So I'm going to go this direction. We'll make the diameter 10 inches. Okay. Coming up this way, we'll make that diameter 4 inches. And first let's just create that big disc before we start cutting away. So we'll finish sketch, zooming, extrude, click there, make that 1 inch thick, but we want it symmetric. Perfect. Nice and beautiful. Okay, press OK. And now we're going to etch away that center piece there so we can kind of see what we're working with. Okay, I'm going to create a circle in the middle that is 4 inches in diameter, and I'll create a circle on the outside that is 8.5. I'm just kind of making these measurements up. And then let's go ahead and finish sketch there. And what I'm going to do is extrude this and cut, selecting this profile, except we want to cut that down really 1/4 of an inch, 1.25, create a little bit of a raised option here. Let's come over to the back side and do the same. Create sketch, project geometry. Let's flip it over. I love this tool. This project geometry tool is great. I'm going to project that, and I did the top part, so I got to do the top part here. Boom. Onto the other side, and then we have our circle. We should be able to finish sketch, extrude that, cutting in 0.25. Great. Now we've got this marvelous little disc here from which we can start to create our gear in all its glory. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do with my gear is I'm going to cut this hole out of the top. So I'll go ahead and make that 2 inches wide, maybe. Okay, we're going to cut that out using extrude. So far, nothing too interesting. Cutting all the way through. Oh, looks like we're good. Oh, no. Drag that all the way through to make our cut. Great. Okay, now we get to use the circular pattern tool like we hoped. The first way I'm going to do it is I'm going to create each of these holes here. Now you can do this a couple ways. I'm going to kind of do it the wrong way first, so see how some people do it. You can draw a circle. It's not necessarily the wrong way, it's just not the normally fast way. But what most people would do here is they'd say, all right, let's get a circular pattern going. You select the geometry you want to rotate. So click the geometry, select this circle, and select the axis you want to rotate it around. I want to spin it around this point which is currently not in our sketch, so I'm going to project that point onto our sketch if it's allowing me to, which it's not. Son of a nutcracker here. Alright, let's try that again. Can I snap my circle? There we go. Alright, perfect. Now I got a point to snap to. Let's do our circular pattern. We're selecting the geometry we want to repeat. We want to repeat this circle. The axis of rotation is going to be... Oh, that's not in the same plane. Oh, it's just not clicking. Boom! Sorry, that was loud. Okay, the default is 6. It just so happens that what we need is 6 circles, so that's perfect. You could change this to whatever you want, 8 or 4 or whatever you need to do. Keep it at 6 so we can draw this accurately. You press OK, and then now we can zoom to fit, finish our sketch, grab extrude, and go ahead and take all these and cut them through our shape. Hooray! Okay, and the next one I'm going to show you a little bit faster way. A faster way to do that, rather than have to click on each individual piece, would be to use the circular pattern on the extrusion and repeat the extrusion. And we'll do that in just a second when we're drawing the teeth on our gears. So you'll see the number 47 here. That means there are 47 teeth on our gear. It looks like it's not super tall, but fairly tall there. So I'm going to come out, we'll make them maybe an inch tall or something. I'm going to create a sketch on this edge, on the top edge, and we will, let me just click and drag, zoom in. So we got to think here. That was we already kind of did the math there for what we needed to do, and we just created a circle and copied it 6 times. We didn't really do much that was interesting. Well, now we got a problem, because if we choose the wrong size for our teeth and we copy, they might run into each other. So we got to do a little math and think about how wide each of those gears and each gap takes up. So there are 47 gears, which means there are 47 gaps between gears. So we're going to think as a gap and a gear are kind of be one unit, and that's what we're going to have to draw. So if there's 47 of those and there are 360 degrees in a circle, okay, we can go to our calculator. Let's see here. Calculator, and do 360 divided by 47, and we end up with 7.659. I'm going to say 7.66 degrees. So each tooth and each gap must exist within 7.66 degrees. So how do we do that? We set our line. I'm going to draw a construction line that comes out to this edge. And you know what, let's go a little bit further. These are construction lines, it's not the biggest deal. Grab the line tool again, come on out, draw it, just a construction line, doesn't have to be perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the dimension between here and here, between these two lines, to be 7.66 degrees, and then it squeezes in. So I should be able to fit 47 of those gaps around the edge. So that means I'm going to draw my teeth on the outside here. If I want to draw my teeth for my gear right about here, then we need to fit the tooth over and a gap going across. And so what I'm going to do here, and this may seem a little bit strange, if you're thinking about the gap being on the right, that means our tooth really, if you would take calipers and you'd be able to measure this out if you actually had a gear you were trying to recreate. But I'm going to call this little space the gap, which means in order to kind of keep things in order and keep track of where that gap is, I'm going to draw another construction line connecting from here to here, and that's going to kind of measure the gap, and I'm just eyeballing it. So we'll say right about there. Now ideally this gap is the same measurement as the top of the gear. So we'll see. I don't think it always has to be perfect, but I'm going to measure my arc out for the top of the gear, and then we can go from there. Another helpful trick might be to take a dimensional measurement from, if we want our gear centered in this gap, we want it perfectly centered, take a dimension measurement. It's 5.28 degrees. So what I can actually do is, we'll keep that there. I'm going to draw one more, and I'm going to use this construction line option so we know. I'm going to draw one more line to keep track using the line tool. And it's going to snap there and come up into the middle. Oh, look, that cuts that in half perfectly. 5.28. Oh, maybe it doesn't. Let's take a look. Is that perfectly in half? Hey, it looks good to me. I bet you if we took a dimension measurement between here and here, it's going to be 5.28 divided by 2. 5 is 2.5 divided by 2.8. So it should be 5.6 or 2.68 or 2.55. So 5. What was that? Oh, that looks like about right. I can't remember what the other one was. Dimension. All right, and then what was the dimension between here? It should be half the degree. 5.28. So half of 2.8 is 1/4. 2.5. Let's say that is not looking like half. No, it's not. So, yeah, I did that. So half of 5.28 is 2. Change the dimension to 2.64, I believe is correct. There, that looks a little bit better. Okay, now the reason I cut that in half is because I want to be able to draw my gear and keep it symmetric using that mirror tool that we've used before. So let's get a good view here. I think a good height for my gear, we can kind of eyeball it, snapping to this line. Let's come up to there. I'm using the arc tool because I want to create kind of that nice rounded shape of a tooth. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now rather than try and replicate that over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and then select this line here and then mirror it over our other construction line to get our other line there. Okay. And then for the top of my gear, I'm going to use an arc between here and here. Oh, you know what? These can be regular lines. They do not need to be construction lines anymore. So let's get that going. And let's do an arc from here to there and an arc from here to there. So we got our tooth. That's looking pretty good. Okay, and we've got some of these construction lines we may not need. Let's go ahead and add a fillet to these edges, and that seems a little big. I think 0.05 seems appropriate. Click that line and that line, that line and that line, and then let's come in and trim away what's missing. Cool. So we've got the teeth of our gear here. Let's go ahead and zoom out and we'll finish sketch. Let's also delete some of these construction lines. Okay. Oh, you know what we don't have is the bottom piece here. So let's see if we can get an arc to snap to that top. We need an enclosed shape in order for extrude to work. It's wanting to go above the line. I'm just going to make it inside so it's a solid piece. It doesn't matter. Should be just fine. Okay, super. Zoom to fit. Oh dear, that arc is extremely far down. All right. What on earth? Oh, we got that awful arc down there. I'm gonna fix that real fast so we can. I think it's the arc from this line, maybe. I'm going to make that just a regular old line. Hopefully that solves the problem. Aha! Fantastico. Okay, so now we want to extrude that shape. Just the top piece. Oh dear. And we're going to go the opposite direction. We don't want to cut, we want a regular shape, and we want it to be 1 inch, because that is the thickness. Look at our beautiful gear. That's amazing. Our little tooth. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got this. We only need to draw one, and like before, remember how I said we drew the circles, copied, then cut? Well, now we're going to draw the whole shape. You can use the circular pattern in the 3D sketch as well. Click on the thing you want to repeat, and this is where it gets a little tricky. The axis of rotation, what the heck do I rotate around? Go into your origin. If you've centered your shape correctly, you should be able to select on the y-axis. Okay, so clicking there. How many of these do we want? Well, there are 47 teeth. We want 47 of them. We hit OK, and we're left with this stunningly beautiful gear that we've created. That's amazing. I think that's just fantastic. Wow. What an amazing program. Okay, so that's what we've got. Look at that amazing gear. And that's basically it for the tools. I'm going to go ahead and get you started on your assignment. For your assignment, you're going to draw a 6-sided die as well as a dartboard, okay? And you want to have that top wedge kind of centered. So these are your two challenges. To draw the die, let's get started in a new sketch, and I'll give you the dimensions that you're going to use for each one. You could do this without using the pattern tools. I want you to try to use the pattern tools as best you can. Use this as an opportunity to practice. Okay, so I'm going to make this 6 by 6 rectangle. Finish sketch. Okay, and we're going to extrude using the symmetric option 6 inches. Okay, so it's 6 by 6 by 6. Click on the front right face, create a sketch. I want your circles to be 1.25 inches. Okay, I'm going to draw another 1.25er right here. When you are cutting this in half, since this is, we want this kind of, I'm going to draw the 3, and I've kind of done it off axis. That's fine. We'll draw it over here. Okay. You want this, so this center circle kind of cuts the shape in half right there, right? You want this to cut this half in half, so you really are using, you're splitting the shape up into quarters based on the gaps between the centers of the circles. So from here to here, a quarter of 6 is 1.5. So I'm going to add the dimension between this center and the edge to be 1.5. Okay, and I'm going to add the dimension between this center and not the circle. Come on, man. That point and this edge to be also 1.5. Cool. We got a pretty good looking circle there. Now, to get the third one, you should not have to draw and do that again. That was kind of a pain. So what you can do, there's two things you can do. You can draw a line between here and here and mirror. This would be probably the easiest way to do this pattern. No, we're going to select, deselect that. We're not selecting the geometry we want to flip is, or mirror is this. The mirror line we're going to select is that. Press apply. Great. That would work to create the third. An even easier way to do that is, I would say, to use the circular pattern. So take your geometry, which is this circle. The axis of rotation is that center. How many copies do we want? Well, we want just 2. We're taking this, spinning it around, creating a copy over here. Press OK. You've got it all done. Finish sketch. So you can do that for the rest of the sides of the die. Please use these dimensions. Each one in the corner should be 1.5 away from the edges. But when you extrude and cut, you're going to be cutting 0.25 into each shape. You can add those for each die. Boom. And I want you to round those edges. To do that, you're going to use fillet, and you're going to click. A fillet should be the same as, so if you notice, if I click right now, it's not at 1.25 inches. The fillet is not the right size. It's a little bit too small. We want it to be nice rounded. So click in there and make it 0.25. Okay, and then you can just click and add any additional shape that you want. You could save that for the very end and just do it for all your faces if you like. But anyways, that's the 3. You guys go through and make the rest of the sides of your die. When you're done, come and fill it out the rest of these edges. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed the video.